boxing. Let's get the latest thoughts from the two men in action tonight, Joe Bugner, but first, his American opponent, Dino Denis. He stands 6'3" tall, he comes from Boston, and he's won 49 of his 54 fights.
I think Joe had his chance years ago, and he more or less disappointed the people of England, because it seemed like the people of England got a lot of pride, and Joe just didn't have enough pride himself. I think he's lacking a lot of heart, which I have, and he doesn't, and he's got 25 pounds on me, but that's nothing. In other words, like, as far as I'm concerned, it'll be faster than he is, and come that 8th, 9th, and 10th round, he should be tired from that weight. I mean, it's just too much weight to carry on. He's better off being a football player than a boxer.
He says you're bigger than him, but your heart's not in it.
Well, if that's what he thinks, he should talk to some of my opponents. And he will know that my heart has been in it always. I may not have knocked all the people out in my career, but I think somewhere around 40, 42 opponents who did go out, they'll tell a story, different.
Well, they're certainly talking a good fight. Turning for a moment to Frank Bruno. Frank, how impressed have you been with Joe in his two previous fights?
Very impressed, because he's done the job. That's what he's been paid for.
Results that count?
Yeah.
Terry, what about you? Looking at the fight tonight and with an experienced observer's eye, what are you looking for from Bugner and what do you expect to see?
I think I'd like to see him get past a few rounds. I'd like to see him get past 5, 6 rounds, because I had the feeling both of the first two fights that he was beginning to tire. He has been out for a long time, and I'd just like to see him get past the halfway mark and see how he copes with that.
How big a problem will Dino Denis be? Because he's a fairly durable character by his record, isn't he?
Well, it's a bit hard to tell, you know. He's been about a long time. He's had a lot of tough fights, and it's just if they've caught up with him or not. But he's obviously a tough opponent.
Do you fancy him tonight, Frank?
Yeah, I do fancy him, because he's on home territory.
Bugner? And you say Bugner as well?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Bugner as well. Well, we'll see. In a moment, then, we'll be going across to the Alexandra Pavilion for Joe Bugner against Dino Denis, and that comes up after a short break. Fight is now just a moment or two away. Let's join our commentator in the Alexandra Pavilion, Reg Gutteridge.
Well, hello there, and there's certainly a great deal of atmosphere now. You've joined us exactly on time, because the American John Dino Denis, there he is, coming into the ring, who certainly sounded very confident indeed in our pre-dressing room interview there, pre-fight interview, putting his hands on his manager and trainer's shoulders there, just to make sure that nobody shakes his hand too much. A lot of personality, this fellow. And to be fair, the crowd are trying to be a bit fair, but there's also a share of booze. He came in at 15 stone 5 pounds. And now the disco music, I think it's called Second Time Around, for the other man, Joe Bugner. First appearance in this country of Dino Denis, who's been around among the big-timers. 54 fights, this fellow, 49 wins and a draw. And the 4 losses, strange enough, have been always against big opponents. Foreman, Cooney, Leroy Jones, and recently to Donnie Long. So the lights are dipped, and we got a shot of Joe Bugner leaving the dressing room now, and the hands on his shoulders of Ernie Fossey, and he too gets the cheers and the boos. He's always had a love-hate relationship going with the crowd, Joe Bugner. I thought perhaps he was a little bit edgier than I'd seen him against the 2 British fighters he had in his comeback fights with Winston Allen and Eddie Nielsen. He seemed a little bit edgy in the dressing room. He came in at 16 stone and 7 pounds. They weighed in, actually, on a kilo machine at 1 o'clock today, which didn't seem very satisfactory. They had trouble with the conversion. And I think they sort of stepped on the scales before they came in tonight. And weight really doesn't matter that much with heavyweights. In fact, Joe Bugner, when he knocked out Richard Dunn, weighed 16 stone 2. So he hasn't really put on that amount of weight. And they're all gloved up. Sometimes they do that little ritual in the ring, but they both camps agreed to glove up in the dressing room and come straight back into action. And the corner crew there, Ernie Fossey, Robert Warren and Victor Andretti, who used to be a champion, has now got a license as a trainer. And Denis being disrobed.
Gentlemen, please. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the main event of the evening. Frank Warren proudly presents an international heavyweight contest of 10 3-minute rounds, sponsored by Crest Hotels. Introducing in this corner, ladies and gentlemen, from Boston, USA, John Dino Denis. And from London, ladies and gentlemen, the former heavyweight champion of Great Britain and Europe, Joe Bugner. At the weigh-in today, Denis scaled 15 stones 5 pounds, Bugner 16 stones 7 pounds. The officials for this contest: referee Mr. Roland Dakin, timekeeper Mr. Tom Powell.
So that's the announcements over and on with the business. And I'm afraid that Dino Denis got his pounds mixed up a bit there in the dressing room. He's not giving away 25, he's only giving away 16. Scheduled then for 10 rounds. And it really is a very small ring. It's only 16 foot 6 inches. And the minimum size for a ring, you couldn't hear the bell there, the referee. What's the problem here? I think he's having trouble hearing the bell. Right, so he wants to start on time. Oh, well, what do you think about that? Bugner did that with Richard Dunn. This fellow takes a good shot if it looks as though he'll need to. Stopped in his last fight, Denis, but he'd had a run of wins just before that. And when you've been in with George Foreman and Jerry Cooney, you know what it's like to take good punches, but he's never been counted out. He's been stopped, and he's made a big point and said, well, I've never had the top doleful 10, as they say in America, counted over me. Was the one that got away, which rather pleased Denis. So quite a bit of action really in the opening minute. A little bit of encouraging teeth gritting going on by Bugner, sometimes a bit lackadaisical at the off. I think maybe some of the press criticisms have got to him today. Talking about road to nowhere and things like that upset Joe. Denis gets a number 16 in the American Ring Magazine ratings, and they did invent the rating system, but he's not in the WBA, WBC top 10. I would have thought Bugner would have got down to a bit of left-hand jabbing, trying to soften this fellow up. He's used to opponents rushing in and banging around the ribs like this. Well, it is a durable character, Denis. He's going to have to prove it here. He's carrying a little bit of scar tissue around the eyes, and I would have thought there's a chance that they could open. So half a minute to go then. That's the left jab again. Not a lot of power in it, but good point scoring stuff. Well, not a bad opening round for Bugner. He came out with a flyer there. But this fellow's not Richard Dunn, whom he knocked out very quickly the last time when he was around as British champion, and he gave that up. A bit of makeup treatment around the eyes there. Almost looks like the Hollywood stuff, doesn't it? Well, they put this little bit of grease around the face to try and stop some of the chafing of the gloves as they go past. And looks at he's, I'm all right and he's strong, if I've read that correctly. Remember, Bugner's had so much experience, really. 427 professional rounds. He didn't have that many as an amateur. He only had 14, of which he lost 2. He did box for Young England when he was only 16 and a half. He looks in good shape, I must say. Second round then. Well, certainly Bugner's looking better this time than he did, I think, against Winston Allen and Eddie Nilsson. He treated them a bit too much with contempt, and they gave him a good fight as a result of it. 3 rounds and 5 rounds. I think he's been just a little wary of this fellow who's knows the ropes, been around a bit. Denis actually managed by the Petronelli brothers, who also handled the great middleweight champion Marvin Hagler. But they're not here with him tonight. They've sent their representatives. And Denis is just not doing enough work, as they say in the professional game yet. He's on the receiving end a bit too much. Well, this is an aggressive Joe Bugner indeed, but Denis managed to remind him that he was still there and a little bit dangerous. Minute to go then in the second round. Scheduled for 10. And both have a good record, really, of staying the distance in fights. And Denis talking about lack of heart with Bugner. I'm not sure whether he heard that. Wasn't too pleased about that. In fact, I think he did hear it. Oh, there. Well, there you are. He signalled that one from the back of the crowd, and he got away with the second one. Not only telegraphed the punch, he almost sent a postcard before he threw it. Well, it might be a bit early to judge, but I'm wondering now how Terry Lawless and Frank Bruno think this is going. Well, meanwhile, we can watch a little bit of decoration in the ring with this young lady in the rounds board. Let's have a look at replay while later we can talk to Frank. That's where he's got him backed on the ropes there. And he really is fairly accurately with that. Well, it was a good flurry, really, there from Bugner. So third round then, and Bugner having won the first 2 because simply that Dino Denis wasn't throwing enough leather back. vast improvement, isn't it, from the first two fights? If you saw them on ITV with Bugner, he looks a lot better this time. Oh! And they must have heard me say that, because there aren't too many fighters who knock Denis over with a right hand like that, and the referee's going to stop this because his legs buckled on him. I'm sure he'll probably protest, but it's always better to stop a contest too early than too late. And Bugner really was looking the part then, and that right hand was an absolute beauty, just at the point that I was saying, well, he's certainly looking a lot better here. And he just saved from being counted out there, Denis. He created at least that record, the indignity of not having been. He was a little bit upset when he stood up, but really his knees totally buckled on him, and he didn't have much chance at all there. That punch was a beauty. And I said before that I didn't think Bugner was noted really for big punching power, but to do it against a tried and very tested performer like Dino Denis was a good performance. It was only 40 seconds of round 3 I made that. A cuddle there for the trainer, and rightly so, and Marlene Bugner, who's been just behind me there, was obviously very satisfied with that. And of course sympathies go to Dino Denis' wife and mother, who were here in the audience. But this new arena at Alexandra Pavilion in London, well, the atmosphere was good, and Bugner turned it on for them. There's no question about that. So well, let's have a look now at the slow motion of that knockout punch. There it is, right over the top. Caught him on the head first, then that was the lead up to the knockout punch, and there again, bang, right on the chin that missed him. The left hook came in and bangs his head there against the pads, and he just keeps going all the time, Bugner. Denis missing absolutely with a punch there, but it wasn't in fact the knockout punch point in that corner. He sized up again for it, looking for the opening, and Dino Denis moving towards Bugner's right hand at this point, and there it goes. A picture punch if I've ever seen one. So if we can get into the melee of the ring, let's hear Simon talking to the winner.
Well done, Joe. That was some right hand, wasn't it?
Thank you, Simon. I have been practicing it quite a bit. I just wished it would have been Rodriguez, because I think my fans out there and over here, they deserve the win. And by God, you know, with the boxing the way it is, this is the only way to do it for them. You know, give them something to talk about and
right. The first 2 rounds were your rounds, but there were signs that he was very durable then. Were you getting a little bit frustrated that he wasn't showing any signs of going?
Well, Simon, as far as I know, this man has been stopped on cuts before, but never been on the deck so fast and with such a... Mind you, it was a great right hand, wasn't it?
It was almost as good as you've thrown, really, wasn't it? Let's have a look at it. I think we can see it in slow motion now. Here it comes, Joe. So we're halfway through the 3rd round. And he said you had no heart.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you, doesn't it, Simon? You don't need heart to throw right hands like that.
Over the top.
There you go. Did you feel that one all the way through?
Yes. I'll show you my knuckle afterwards.
That's a promise.
Look at the face on that poor fella.
Did you feel, though, as tight as you have throughout your career before that fight?
Well, you see, Simon, I knew that this man was a world contender. I also knew that he was a very durable character. So what Ernie Fossey said to me, Joe, take your time, just stick the jab and come up with the right-hander as soon as the bell goes. And Ernie, being as smart as he is, by Jove, he done a good job, didn't he?
Right. Ernie, you're going to take some credit for that, are you?
No, Joe done the fighting, not me. And I just know, you know, I honestly believe that Joe can be the world champion. He's never believed in himself, and now he does. It's confidence, Simon, nothing else.
Right. There's one thing I can tell you is that as a fella in the studio, Joe, who's watching the fight, his name's Frank Bruno. Have you got a message for him?
I just want to tell you, Frank, out there, if you're looking in, take heed. These are rated fighters. Before you tackle Joe Bugner, be ready.
Right, well, there's the word for you. And back in the studio, Frank Bruno's with Brian Moore. Brian, you can take it up from there.
Hi, Brian.
Well, thank you, Simon. Frank, what about that, first of all?
Well, it was a good right hand, Brian.
But what Joe was saying to you,
well,
these are rated fighters.
Yeah, rated fighters.
Watch and listen and learn from that.
I wish my next fighter could be Joe Bugner, you know, so I can prove who's the daddy.
That was a tremendous punch.
It was a tremendous punch, very good punch, but if a young, determined, strong youngster went at him all the time, I think he would crack up under the pressure, to be quite honest.
You do. We'll come back to you in just a moment. A really explosive...